We will have Anuj Tandon from Jet Synthesis and Ms. Noni Sehgal from Lumai Company would be joining us for the session for fireside chat. The topic for the session is the Indian gaming landscape. Where do the big bets lie? I may request Mr. Anuj Tandon, who is an entrepreneur, CEO, leader, growth driver. He achieved success in global and Indian market to consumer entertainment. We have Ms. Saloni Sehgal, founding general partner, Mica Funds, 15 years as an interactive media VC gamer entrepreneur. We request you to please start the session. Thank you.
So tough one to follow after my ex-boss and current boss have spoken. So it's a good conversation to sort of start with that. Uh, Thank you, Sean and Rajan, for that insightful session. And I would like to, first of all, just ask Saloni to, give a quick introduction about Lumicai and, about herself and her journey quickly, and then we'll get onto this fireside chat.
Sure. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much, CII, for having us here. Very quickly about me, I'm founding general partner of Lumicai. We're India's first gaming and interactive media fund. We invest very early into gaming companies, so we often come in at seed, pre-seed stage, and we're often first institution in. I've been in the games industry for now over a decade, so I've come from a previous experience of being an investor, an entrepreneur, as well as an investment banker and private equity specialist. So very nice to be here.
Right. So thanks, Saloni. I just wanted to, start off with, when we talk about the theme, the future of gaming in India, right? And some of the biggest guys who sort of shape the future of gaming in India are in this audience, right? Jet Synthesis, Krafton, and then Lumicai, right? Because very pivotal decade for this industry, and you guys pick out really, really early bets. So, a lot of the stuff which the audience is thinking about the Indian market, what's going to happen, you guys see the trends happening and you pick out the best companies to invest. Just wanted to start off with what makes you sort of build a thesis on, and what are the thought process that goes behind that, because it's not an easy thing to pick out, right? It's a very fast growing industry, a lot of changes happening. Yeah.
So, I think, and Anuj, you've been in the business for so long, and, this is something that you've also seen, and you've also been a very early believer in the growth of the India ecosystem. And that's something that really is something we echo as well. I have tracked gaming markets across China, across Turkey, across Vietnam, seen what world class looks like in, let's say, Europe and in North America. And there have been certain inflection points in the India market over the last 2-3 years, which makes us very, very bullish on what the India market has to offer in terms of gaming and game development. Right? At Lumicai, we also publish research and data around the size of the market in terms of monetization, in terms of usage, in terms of supply of games. And we can all see that there is a very clear thread towards gaming becoming very, very mainstream. Right? Last year, in fact, India was the largest consumer of mobile games in the world. We actually overtook US and China. We consume 15 billion gaming apps. Also, alongside that, India's showing very early and very strong signs of monetization. So earlier, there was always this misconception that India is a DAO farm. Indians don't pay for games. Indians don't play for games. And that's, again, something that's been debunked quite conclusively, because we have seen the market grow to become a $2.6 billion market with growth rates of north of 30-35%. It's the fastest growing market in the world, heading to become an $8 billion market, with in-app purchases being the fastest growing category. So clearly there is demand, as well as also ability and willingness to pay for gaming and gaming products. Right?
Awesome. So we all are gung-ho about the market, but there's, certain macro factors that sort of catalyze the environment, and the thing which sort of, if we look a little bit of the history, since you've called me a veteran already, In 2016, it was Jio that sort of transformed Indian gaming consumer habits when it dropped its 4G rates. Do you think a similar sort of moment is happening in 2023 with the launch of 5G? And what will be the impact broadly? Maybe I can also give some of my thoughts, but what will be the impact of that?
I think that's such a clear inflection marker that's again coming up, right? When you look at, let's say, what Jio did, right, in terms of just slashing data rates by 90%, the average Indian went from consuming under a gig of data to last quarter, Jio's results were that an average Jio user is actually consuming 22 gigs of data a month, right? We're also seeing Jio in terms of the telco ARPUs across the board have increased by 20-30%. And when you speak to the folks at Jio, in fact, they're spending it on gaming. And when we now look at what Jio is going to offer in terms of just 5G infrastructure, where they've got a 5-second milli lag in terms of latency, that will unlock incredible amount of gaming experiences, which we probably hasn't been unlocked, right? We're already as a gamer base, we're showing propensity to consume mid-core sophisticated experiences, and that's been seen in the the advent of a BGMI and a Free Fire. Even for example, slightly more mid-core titles like a Genshin Impact are doing well, right? So what does that mean in terms of usage behavior? What does that mean in terms of paying behavior? I think it's 5G plus UPI, which is the combination of a game changer. And I'd love to hear your thoughts about it as well.
Yeah, so in that sense, then streaming becomes incredibly important as a subsegment in gaming to look out for as a market to invest, right? And I think we did a deal together, Violet Crafton and Lumika in Loco, and you think that can benefit out of this macro factors?
Absolutely, right? Because we've already seen the bedrock of that become, that kind of gamer adoption behavior. Those levers are already in place, right? Why are people watching other people stream? They're watching it because for pure entertainment. It's a new demographic which is now logging onto these streaming platforms and saying, hey, I want to, I'm learning from this, or I'm getting entertained from this, or I want to become better at this game. So all of these kind of behaviors are now really catalyzing this new generation, which is a much younger generation of Gen Z millennials. And with I think Rajan and Sean both talked about it. When you have this demographic, which are digital natives, gamer first, this is a very, very logical expansion of that behavior.
No, I think that is something. I'm going to talk a little bit about, the game consuming habits of Indians, right? So I've been observing, like you said, right from my days where as an entrepreneur to sort of Nazara, then Yuzu, then Crafton, and now at Jet, the consumer shift in gaming habits, they were largely 2 to 3 for Indian gamers that were marked. For example, one was the advent of casual games, Ludos and Caroms. One was the Battle Royale, the PUBGs, the BGMIs, Free Fires. And probably the third is the RMG sector. In terms of consumer habits, these are the large segments that have formed over the period of last 10 years for Indian gaming consumers. Do you think that will evolve in the next 3 to 4 years, or we are going to see, because nobody was able to predict a 1.5 GB game from Shenzhen would be doing so well in India. I have done many prediction panels, and I can honestly raise my hand and say, never predicted that to happen in India, right? So do you think Indian gaming habits as a consumer will change, and there will be more monetization opportunities in the next 2 to 3 years?
Yeah, I think this is our belief. It's also because if you see gaming trends, right? Battle Royale as a genre, for example, became really popular, let's say in 2017 globally, right? US, China, Japan were very key markets for Battle Royale, when Battle Royale in India was nearly non-existent. It actually came to India in 2018, 2019. So there was almost a lag of a year, year and a half when that gamer behavior started to get adopted. Now, there can be two reasons for it. One is, well, just the focus of this audience was not made aware. Got made aware, and this behavior took off. It was streamable. A lot of influencers started playing this game. But also, what we notice is game developers often come in and define genres for the market, right? Craft, at that point of time, Tencent had a real big push on driving battle royale behavior in India, and hence it really started to take off. Now, if we were to look at the trends globally, battle royale as a trend is declining, right? Both in terms of downloads and in terms of revenue, we're seeing there to be interest waning. What's topping the charts now is social games, actually. Stumble Guys, Goose Duck. There are new kind of genres which are now emerging. So I feel like as the gamers become sophisticated, as the Indian gamer becomes much more plugged into what's happening globally, as much more game developers start to acknowledge India as a powerful center of gaming, I think the mix of games, there will be much more diversity. There is a much more deeper appetite for mid-core games, but also casual games, right? Like if we look back and say, Moon Active's Coin Master is a really strong grossing game in India, right? It made $20 million off a base of 2 million downloads in the last 18 months. So I think there is a lot more appetite for there to be exploration of what the Indian gamer likes, both from domestic players as well as from global players.
Awesome. So I have my own thoughts on this, but I'll take a more controversial take. And I would love, because since it's a fireside chat, I wanted to bring some fire. Do you think real money gaming is limiting the growth of the casual gamer into a more traditional mid-core, hardcore gamer? Because if I'm a user, a tier 2 user, and I'm playing Ludo today, I want to graduate into, say, playing a battle royale, but I have an option to play Ludo with real money. Hey, I'm gaming, I'm making money, my motivations sort of change. Do you think that transformation is just slowed down a little because of the real money gaming? And you can skip that answer if you're an investor in a few things. I totally will get it.
Yeah, I like how you're like marring Chabi here. So look, I mean, historically, and again, opinion aside, let's look at what data has, right? Historically, every new evolution of gaming has actually expanded the market. It hasn't contracted it. It hasn't cannibalized it, right? Earlier, people said, you're an arcade gamer. If you go to PC, you're going to eat up the market share of arcade gamers. If you're PC, then you're not going to play console. If you're console, hey, by the way, mobile is going to not take off because you've got console behavior. So, and then it was Web3. Hey, Web3 is the new revolution. There are not going to be any mobile gamers left because everybody's going to play for money. So I think historically what we've seen is every time there's a new game format, every time there is new genres, every time there is new kind of evolution in gaming forms, it has actually led to market expansion. This is why we've gone from, let's say, 200 million gamers about 20 years back to about 2 billion gamers, right? And this is where I believe that there is room for every format of gaming. It's almost, gamer as a word is, in my mind, redundant, right? It is ubiquitous. As often as people who watch movies, do you say, are you a movier? No, you're not a movier. Everybody watches movies. So now we are in this new age world where are you a gamer, to me, is redundant, because I think everybody is a gamer. And everybody has different formats of what they like and what they appreciate. So if you're motivated for money, great. If you're not motivated for money and you want to play Ludo, fantastic. But there's room for both.
Right. Awesome. So in that sense, because you took a very interesting topic, I'll just slide to that. Are you a Web3 bro or a Web3 no? And then I'll ask my question.
I'm a Web3 maybe.
Maybe.
Yeah, and again, I'd love to hear your opinion about it, because you see, Web3 was crafted as this revolution, and there is such deep promise. It is such a compelling proposition. There's ownership, and there's ownership of assets, and if the game publisher tries to mess with your assets, you have complete ownership. But at the same time, we've also seen, for example, there were games which took which did the F1 NFTs, and then they couldn't renew the contract, and those F1 NFTs became worthless, right? When we talk about the promise of Web3, it is very unlike what, let's say, mobile free-to-play did, right? Mobile free-to-play broke down barriers. It put gaming experiences on the palm of your hand. It was super easy to access. It was free to play. It expanded demographics. Women started playing games, and now women constitute 60% of the world's gamer population. Web3 has gone and re-erected those barriers right again. You need 6 steps to get into a Web3 experience. You need to have a MetaMask. You need to buy tokens, which are deeply expensive. You need to be financially savvy. So access has become a problem. The utility of what you're buying is also problematic. And eventually, there's a 3-body problem, which is deeply difficult for a game publisher to solve. You are solving for the game publisher's needs, the gamer's needs, and then the speculator's needs. And then to align this as a economy is such a difficult problem to solve. So I feel we're still, until we can solve these very fundamental problems, I feel like this is probably a little bit of a pipe dream, maybe a few years later.
Yeah, since you asked my opinion, I feel, I think every new technology goes through a hype cycle. Like you said also that, we saw it with VR, with the Oculus acquisition.
Absolutely,
We saw it with AR, with Pokemon Go coming. No follow-up killer app coming. I think Web3 needs, at least in gaming, needs not an Axie Infinity, but a better role model for gaming. To answer also one of the other questions in the previous panel, there was an audience question that will publishers sort of allow for Web3 gaming? And so, I mean, you have to realize publishers want control more like everyone else, and game economies are created to generate profit. The more you incentivize to decentralize without a proper monetization, you're not going to make money. And then at the end, game organizations are money-making machines, right? So you have to think from that perspective that that's not going to be slow. So I think Web3, I'm also a maybe. I was a complete no 6 months back. And, hate to say I was proven right, but I'm a maybe now because I feel the wheat from the chaff has separated, and, the real good people are now making decent attempts at Web3 gaming. And we're going to see some really cool stuff coming in the next 1 or 2 years. And at least that's my hope.
Yeah, and also, like, if you look at user adoption, right, there are less than 1 million active wallets at the moment for Web3, right? It's about 800,000 active wallets, right, at the moment, which is nothing, right? So if you were to, let's say, even are gamers wanting it? And I don't know what the answer to that is. It's looking like maybe not, right?
Now, I'm going to ask another question, which is slightly on the edge, but I want to ask that anyways, is that, how should global companies, gaming companies, look at India as a market? And this is a forum where we can talk about it, because there is regulatory uncertainty in this market. I mean, let's be very clear. There is lack of that. How can one be so committed to invest in a market where there is regulatory uncertainty? Will that scare off global investment coming in? As a fund, of course, you need to market the India market as the development ecosystem-wise. But what is your take on the publisher and the consumer market and, setting up something here?
Yeah. Look, I mean, India is not an easy market to navigate at all. But let's say nor was China, right? But that doesn't mean there's no yield here. Doesn't mean there's no upside here, right? If you have to have upside in this market, if you have to have an edge in this market, you've got to roll with the punches, right? And that means our advice is, if you're looking into this market, be a long-term partner in this market, right? If you're thinking you're going to come in, fly by, invest, do a few deals, leave this market, it's not going to do well for you. You've got to entrench yourself in the market. You've got to understand what it means to really build. And also now I feel like regulatory environment is in some way, India, for example, in crypto took a very anti-stance. But now if we look at the stance that the government has with respect to, let's say, RMG, and in terms of regulating it with a light touch framework, with SRBs, etc., there is to some extent a sense of legitimacy which has been put in the market saying, hey, we're not going to make it punitive for you to operate. Of course, we don't know what the taxation comes up at, and that could kill the industry as well. But at least to some extent, there has been more positive support around this market. If we look at the AVGC task force drafts, if we look at the policy drafts, there is much thought and support being provided to the industry. So I feel that the government has a much more positive outlook to gaming, and they really do recognize it as a sunrise sector versus something with crypto where the RBI governor himself is so anti it, and there have been clear statements and intent against it. So I feel there is a lot more focus on this market, at least globally. And the truth is, if you are looking for the next billion gamers, it's going to come from India. And there's no question about it.
Understood. So I'll then take two quick questions and we'll open up to the audience. This is specifically regarding esports. I think the previous panel also spoke that, esports is a causative factor for young people to adopt gaming as a career choice and other aspects. Jet has sort of incubated esports companies like Nordwind, acquired Sky Esports. Does a fund investing in esports, does it make sense? Or do young esports companies who are here, should they approach Lumekai for funding? Or what do you think?
See, now that's again another very tricky question you put me in. Look, I think on the macro level, esports, of course, is super interesting, right? Because if you're a brand and if you're a broadcaster, if you're a media company, if you want to reach to a young audience, you have to think about gaming, you have to think about esports, and that is incredibly credible. However, if you're a venture fund, you have to then look at the economics of running an esports company, right? And if you look at an esports pipeline, the value creation in that esports pipeline has 4 or 5 main stakeholders, right?
Main is the publisher, right?
The publisher, the distribution platform, the teams, organizers, leagues, et cetera. But the major value creation rests with the distribution platform to some extent, and then the publisher to a large extent, right? Yeah. So I think the question that we're always asking ourselves is there is a venture outcome here? And the answer to that, at least globally, has been no. But it's a great play for billionaires. It's a great play for broadcasters. It's a great play for media companies and for strategics, frankly. So it doesn't mean that there's no avenue to build valuable esports companies. There absolutely is. It's just you need to pick your player. You need to pick your participant on the journey, right? We've backed a distribution platform in the form of Loco. We believe that has deep promise as a venture play. So we're overall very bullish about esports.
No. I think just to clarify, every fund can have their own thesis.
Of course,
they can figure stuff out what it is. I was just making a statement because we have 2 esports companies making noise here. So why not ask that question? Yeah. So lastly, 2023, a lot of, negative press globally. At least in India, we've been insulated from the, layoffs and stuff like that. Starting to trickle down a little. As a early stage investor, what are you saying to your startups and a lot of maybe startups in the audience? Just time to keep the lights on is the message, or right time to double down?
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right? It's the time to be frugal. It's the time to really make sure you survive the next 2 years, the 2.5-year cycle. But I heard from from a family office, a founder who's built in this space and who said that India is a very unique country to build in, because an entrepreneur, you have the physical infrastructure of a lesser developed country, you have a digital infrastructure of a super developed country, you have the compliance and the regulation structure of a really highly regulated sector of a country, and at the same time you have to balance the expectations of a global investor who's trying to exit on global timelines. So it is incredibly hard to be an Indian entrepreneur at this point of time. So, my advice is, guys, hunker down, build for the next, make sure you have enough capital, preserve capital for the next 2 to 3 years. This is not years where you think about growth at all costs.
Perfect. With that, thank you so much, Saloni, for your candid and absolutely frank views. Thank you so much, guys. We'll take one or two questions if you have.
We bored everybody to death.
Hi, Saloni. Lovely to see you here. You know you're an inspiration for a lot of women in
Oh, thank you.
gaming, right? Okay, my name is Anuradha. I'm the co-founder of Play CKC. Play CKC is a live sports gaming platform, and we have interacted in the past with Justin. My question is about sports gaming. Okay, so the moment we say gaming, we think of fantasy sports, and unfortunately, we stuck there because there are huge giants in that space, right? And what is happening is that our clones, there are incremental changes happening. There are many clones out there doing amazing work. They have created a gamer segment. In fact, Dream 11, kudos to them. They created a sports gaming segment in India a few years ago. However, we feel, especially the people who are building in the sports gaming space still, and we're trying to build something very different from fantasy gaming. We believe that disruption is on the way, and it can't just be stuck to fantasy gaming, right? Because as you rightly said earlier, that we believe every sports fan is a gamer too.
Yeah.
It's definitely a casual gamer somewhere. And I won't talk about my startup right now, but my question to you is, how do you think the disruption in sports gaming space will come in? What do you think will disrupt this space?
Yeah, I think, that's a really interesting question, and I'd love to learn more about what you're building. Look, I think disruption in any space, and I'd give you more of a broader advice is, in any case, any space, if you're looking to disrupt, you can't be incrementally better than the market incumbent. You have to be 10x better. You have to be exponentially better than what the market incumbent has offered. Many times what the incumbent has actually done is that they've expended a lot of time, energy, and capital educating, making that market for the next comer to come. And especially in gaming, fast follows are a very, very common phenomena, right? Where a fast follow can often be, or at least an innovator in a space which is deeply established can often achieve breakout success. And that's always our view. In fact, I'll recommend a great book to you. It's called Loon Shots. Take a look at it. But it basically talks about how once companies become incumbents, they find very difficult to innovate and very difficult to be agile, as a result of which there is always constant disruption. So we're always on the lookout for new disruptors.
Yeah, I'll just add, talk to Jet Synthesis. We are the #1 sports gaming company in India. Probably investing more in sports gaming than anyone here. So please talk to us. Yeah. Cool. I think we are running out of time, so we'll just end this here.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you so much.